Hey everybody, it's me, JJ Panzer, your Smart Apartment Advisor. Welcome back. Time for another Wednesday. And here we are, smelling the smoke here in San Francisco and wondering, I certainly wouldn't be inviting it, but what else could go wrong, right? Yeah, here we are. I told my daughter on, was it Saturday night, Sunday morning, when the thunderstorms were happening, that was as close as she was going to get to a summer visit to her family in Wisconsin. Was a thunderstorm that's worthy of the Midwest here in San Francisco. Today, talking about the San Francisco rental market, I've shared the link to my most recent article with J.K. Deneen at the Chronicle, talking about reducing rents during the pandemic. You know, my thoughts on the matter are that we have to do everything we can to try to keep as many people who are willing to stay as possible. And in contrast to some of the other people who were quoted in the article, and to sort of the attitudes that we're hearing from some of our tenants when they come to us for a rent decrease, I want to get a commitment that people aren't leaving. In less severe downturns, I'd try the 1 month's free rent. I'd try anything to keep that base rent where I could keep it. And I've never seen this many vacancies in some of the same buildings at the same time. I've never seen this much inventory go onto the market in such a short period of time and not get filled, because there's no demand from people coming from outside San Francisco, which, let's face it, that's where we get the urgency and the desire to move and the need to sign a lease and get moved in the next couple of weeks. Nobody has that right now. Everybody's playing musical chairs in the rental market, trying to get a better deal or a better apartment or a different neighborhood or some outdoor space or laundry in the unit, whatever amenities they want. They're trying to upgrade into that. And I don't blame anybody for it. But when someone comes to me and says, hey, other units on the market are renting for less, I want you to lower my rent, I have to get a commitment that they're not going anywhere for a year after I give them a reduction, number one, so that they don't come back to me again a couple of weeks later and say, no, I want some more. And number two, so that they don't stay for 2 or 3 or 4 months and then leave, in which case I've gotten nothing out of the deal. So I need to get something in return. That's what I'm recommending to my clients. In the past, we've done the 3 months rent to try to keep the base rents where they're at. And I think this downturn is so severe that we're beyond that. We can't wait around. It isn't getting any response from people to try to get that 1 month's free rent or even 2 months free rent. I see people still using that offer online on Craigslist ads, and there's so much supply out there and so little demand, it doesn't seem to have any effect on people. So I had a conversation yesterday with a client who has had us renting their condo in South of Market. And, when I hear about, vacant units in the South of Market area, I go, oh man, that's the worst, right? Because there's so much supply. And so I did a little bit of research, and it's fairly simple to go collect Craigslist data. This unit is a almost 20-year-old condo. It is a 1 formal bedroom, but it's like an 1,100 square foot unit with 1.5 bathrooms. It's a loft. And I went and looked for units that had 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. That's the only filter. And I went clicking through some of the neighborhoods to look at what was available. And the low neighborhood that I surveyed was Bernal, which only had 66 units, which makes sense. Bernal's mostly a single family home neighborhood anyway. And a lot of those are going to be bigger than 2 bedrooms. So there aren't a lot of studios. There aren't a lot of, and there probably are more 3-bedroom plus units. And then I looked at, Alamo Square, another good neighborhood, 132 listings. Noe Valley, 173 listings. The Mission had 480 listings. And you could probably guess one of the reasons why the Mission has so many is because there have been units built in the Mission, and because a lot of people who were living in the Mission before have left. Soma, 1 to 2 bedroom units, over 1,000 units on Craigslist yesterday, just in the 1 to 2 bedroom section. To break that down a little bit, we had 120 listings. The whole first page of listings, when you sort by price, were luxury listings, $5,000 a month and up. So there were 1 bedroom loft units, 1 bedroom, 2 bathroom loft units with, incredible design and big square footage at $5,000 plus a month. There were, luxury units at the top of some of the brand new buildings that were available for $12,000 and $15,000 a month. I mean, those units still exist. They need to be rented. They're part of the competition. Now, most people looking for my units in South of Market aren't looking for that. But when you think about how much information people have to sort through to get to this unit, I think is going to be somewhere in the low threes. You have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7 pages, 720 to 840 listings if you're sorting by price to get to that unit. Now, obviously, Craigslist defaults to a sort that gives you the most recent stuff first, but sorting by price gives you a sense of how much there is in the market. A 3,200 square foot one or two bedroom, or a $3,200 1 or 2 bedroom unit is going to be buried among all those units. There's very little you can do to differentiate your unit from other units unless you're going to be competing on price, which is what I try to keep people from doing, because that can be a long-term loser for us. And really the watchword is try to upgrade the units and be patient with this process, because we're not going to have any demand for a while. And yes, it's going to be expensive. Hopefully everybody is well capitalized. It's really important to stay, to not be relying on this as your income every single month. You have to have enough of a buffer to be able to withstand this. It's a difficult time, and I know it, but it's really important that everybody don't panic, stay strong, and understand that this is beyond anything that we can do. We can't fix this problem. We can't make the units rent any faster unless you've put everything you possibly can into the process. So that's where we're at on rentals, and we've done pretty well on getting places leased. We are getting some traction on some of the units. Bert, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know more an observation. A lot of those places that you talked about in the Soma, particularly the Western Soma, are new, so they're not subject to rent control. So you don't have to worry. So you don't have to worry so much. You do it for right now, and then you can hike it up later. So just as a consideration. So it's not apples and apples exactly.
It isn't exactly, but at the same time, your tenants are looking at all those different options, and they're thinking, well, I can get all these great features and amenities in these brand new buildings. Now, once again, you can't use the gym, you can't use a lot of the features and amenities today. So those buildings are relying on a lot of that stuff, and the culture and the nightlife. In this article that was in the Chronicle today, they were talking about Bayside Village and how the tenants there were all trying to get rent reductions because the rents were too high based on the market, and saying, well, look, we can't go to a Giants game, we can't go to a restaurant, we can't go to a concert, we can't go to see the Warriors. None of that is happening right now, and that's why we live here. And so, yes, I think not being rent controlled means that those landlords can be a little bit more flexible with their pricing now in anticipation of being able to recover in the future.
Right.
But that's another reason why I think it's best for us to just be patient. And, I'm not saying stick to your pricing without adjusting to the market. I'm saying don't race to the bottom, because as was the case with this analysis that I did for this client, you cut your rent by another 10%. They were getting $3,900 for this unit, and now we're thinking it's going to be low threes, $3,200. If you cut it by another $200, that's a big chunk, and it's still only going to get you, down to the bottom of the price scale. It's still so much noise in the channel for people who are looking for an apartment. Finding it is going to be a challenge. So that's a part of where we're at right now. There are some legal developments, and what I'd like to do is bring Denise in. She has another meeting, and so I'll bring Denise in and have her bring us up to date. Looks like the Judicial Council is opening courts September 1st.
Yes, opening courts, and also confirming the issuance of writs of eviction.
Okay.
So the sheriffs all over the county, there's 58 sheriffs, obviously, sheriff's office, 58 counties. The sheriffs are now all authorized to proceed on writs of eviction. They're being issued, and they are supposed to be proceeding. Sometimes, depending upon the county, it can be difficult, but ultimately they will proceed. And then also, I'm sure you all heard that Senate Bill 1436, which allows for no evictions potentially through April of next year, passed the committee, and it goes to the full Senate in the state of California next week. And that will negate our ability to proceed to evict due to COVID-related financial hardship until 90 days after the moratorium in place for the particular property or locale, or April 21st, whichever is sooner. And then there's also the State Bill 1410 that allows for tax credits, still winding its way through and that's the Senate bill. The other one was an Assembly bill. And it's my understanding that they're now talking and trying to merge to determine what they're going to give each other in order to have both bills passed. So that's the update from the state.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. I mean, a statewide moratorium would be challenging, wouldn't it?
Yes, not good, but that is the reality. And then also, I do think that the mayor is going to extend the current moratorium through September.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Nothing's really changed in any meaningful way, and we're still having cases, and people are still not cooperating and behaving themselves.
The good news is that the governor announced today that San Francisco is going to go off the restriction.
Oh, really? So we are.
I mean, we can start moving up phases to phase 3 and phase 4, which means that the office buildings will be possibly opening if we behave ourselves.
If we continue to behave ourselves. So, okay, so we were close. We were only a little bit over the line before. What was it, like 10 cases per 1,000, or I don't remember what the measurement was, but we were only slightly above it. Well, that's good news. And yeah, the other important thing for us all to know is get your donations in for stopping Prop 21. I had a call yesterday with San Francisco Apartment Association. It just feels like last week, even though it was only yesterday. And the campaign is going fairly well. Most of the organizations that supported Prop 10 the last time around have gone neutral or are in opposition this time. But there is some rumors that Michael Weinstein is going to be increasing his spending at the last minute. There's some strange things that are going on that the campaign hasn't quite deciphered yet. But it makes it all the more important that we get significant contributions into Prop 21 to stop the vacancy control measure at the state level so that we can preserve our right as local rent control housing providers to increase rents between tenancies by more than 15% over the course of 3 years. If you have long-term below market tenants, as just about everybody does have one or two of them in most buildings, your rents would be restricted between tenancies. So go ahead and go to noonprop21.vote, and I can send the link again. The ad buys for the home stretch of this campaign season are going to be rapidly approaching. We need to get those contributions in by the end of August. And thank you to those of you who have already made your contributions. Please make them sizable. I would say the minimum would be $500, recommended $100 per unit beyond that. So please do go ahead and make those contributions. Now, unless anybody has further questions, I will say goodbye, Denise. Thank you for joining us. I know you have another meeting to get to, so thank you. Any other questions? All right.
Nope.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Denise. Let me bring Josh in here. Josh, go ahead with your thoughts. Let's talk a little bit about the sale market and the similarities and differences to what's going on in the rental market and smaller buildings, larger buildings, all that stuff.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. So today I've had some questions about the smaller building market from a sales perspective. I did a deeper dive into triplexes and fourplexes to see how they were performing. And I've looked at houses, I've looked at condos and TICs, and I've looked at 5+ units, and I wanted to look at the 3 and 4s. I know some of you own 3 and 4s. it's a good snap. 3 and 4s are interesting because you have owner occupants who live in them, and so they're part home and part investor, part strictly an investment. So they're kind of a hybrid deal. So they perform in strange ways in that sense. Quick snapshot: the last 3-month period, for to mid-May from today, there were 22 buildings sold, triplexes and fourplexes. In the same 3-month period of 2019, it was 47 buildings sold. So you're seeing more than a 50% drop in activity in that space. There are currently 77 properties on the market in the tri and fourplex space. Sorry, that's somebody else's phone. And so it's, there's certainly more inventory than there is demand. I wanted to pay more attention to, okay, so there are 22 buildings that were sold in the last 3 months. How, were they incredible deals? Were they fire sales? How were they moving? So I kind of took a look at that, and I wanted to see, what made them pop, what made them move. And the cap rate it was interesting. The cap rates were low. The average cap rate on those 22 deals was 3.67%. So it's not like they were selling at these incredibly high cap rates and screaming deals or anything. These are kind of market rate deals. Price per square foot also it was comparable to 2019 on those 22 deals. So what I'm seeing is just a lot of activity, obviously, and so just less buyers. The other thing I'm seeing is the high rents. Like, so if you have like the building that has a high cap rate but really high rents. So you have a 3 building around for $8,000 on the books in rents, sitting on the market. And the reason is because most investors are going to see that that's not a sustainable rent number at this time. So there's too much risk attached to that. Whereas I see a building that has, $3,500 a unit, and one guy's paying 27, 33 or whatever. That building.
We lost him.
Sorry. Okay. Can you see me now?
Yeah, your connection is
You got me?
pretty spotty.
Okay. Move 1 second.
While Josh is realigning himself, it's pretty fascinating, the idea that these deals that have been moving are pretty ordinary deals by comparison to the deals that you guys have been looking at over the last, 3.67 cap rate compared to the deals that Josh has been looking at. I'm kind of surprised to hear that news from him. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, well, I think I think it's interesting to see that that's the case. It may just be inventory making its way through the pipeline, but I think there's a lot of truth. People used to be willing to believe that that deal you talked about last week, Josh, had an average rent of $2,700 a unit on Cumberland. But when I looked at the rent roll, you've got a couple of really, really low rents that have been there for 20 plus years. And then you've got 2 or 3 that are, $3,500 a month or more. And it is sort of not to be believed that those $3,500 rents are going to stick around. And I think that those units are probably worth closer to 3. And so, worst case scenario, you buy the building and the tenants come to you and go, yeah, I don't think we want to pay this anymore. Or even, I want a reduction, or I'm leaving. And all 3 of your, high paying tenants move out, and you end up with a 3-month, 6-month vacancy, and you still only get $2,900 a month for it instead of $35. And you're stuck paying for a mortgage based on, a previous number that's not tenable anymore. So anyway,
So-
go ahead.
Yeah. So that was because I was really trying to figure out, okay, what makes a building move right now? Last year at this time, a vacant property in San Francisco is a gold mine. You sell it, you say, someone looks at a building, they say, okay, there's a standard cap rate on it or whatever, but then most investors like, well, I can put these amenities into it, I can refresh the units, I can get above that, and I can do great, and it'll take me 6 months, and it's going to be wonderful. Now the fully vacant building is problematic, right? Because they're worried about filling units. So the one, these buildings that have moved, I've noticed, just have more reasonable rents attached to them, like I mentioned before. So, you're in your kind of 3,500 or less zone. Usually a vacant unit. So fully occupied buildings, they are sitting oftentimes. And so if you have one vacant unit, I'm noticing that an owner occupant can kind of come in and take over that unit and then have two sustainable rents in the other two units. And so they can feel confident that their mortgage is going to be covered, that those rents, and even if those tenants leave, they can replace them at that number. So good neighborhoods, good condition, all those things. That's the only thing that I can see. I mean, the space it's always weird. It's always a little unpredictable in terms of duplexes, even more unpredictable. They have drivers that are attached to heart and home as opposed to just numbers. And so they move around. So, the good news, there is activity for the realistically and reasonably priced folks. And if I was selling I think a luxury, the luxury triplex is trying to get $6,500 a door or $7,500 a door or something. I'm very nervous about selling that building at this time, but something more in the more reasonable range, in that 3,500 and below range, it sells. And so it's an interesting time. Single family homes in San Francisco they're kind of classified as being stable, kind of flat, not a lot of price uptick, not a whole lot of demand. The condo market is down and hurting. All the surrounding areas for single family are doing very well. So, this is all, the exodus is real in the sales department, just like it is in the rental department. And so that's kind of where we're at. There's nothing definitive about this small building space. It's kind of deal by deal, and some people just want to live in a particular neighborhood, or it's close to friends and family, whatever it is, right? Drivers that you can't quantify. But so good news and bad news. I'm not thrilled about that amount of inventory compared to number of sales in the last 3 months. So that this market is down, but not in fire sale territory by any stretch for the deals that are closing. And nothing closed at a 5 cap in the 3 to 4 unit space. So everything is 4.5 and below. So yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's all I really wanted to share about that. And we'll see, keep an eye on additional deals that come out.
I think that sounds good. And one thing that I'd like to revisit is, as we get a little farther down the line, it'll be interesting to revisit some of the deals of the week that we've done in the past. We talked about doing that today. It's probably a little too early still, but I drove by the building you showed us at 17th and South Van Ness yesterday and noticed that it had scaffolding on it and was getting a paint job. So that either indicates that it's sold and somebody's putting some money into it, or that it didn't sell. Okay, so that one's sold.
No, they pulled it off the market, and then they're going to improve it to
try to sell it.
Sell it again.
Yeah, and that looked like that was a deal that maybe was a pre-pandemic pricing that got caught up in the downturn and then needed to get realistic about where it was at. So
Yeah, and that was, and I felt like the value was there, but the curb appeal was terrible. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's a smart move.
yeah,
It's just like all of us are facing. Well, how can we improve our units right now to
Yep.
just get us over the hump, right?
definitely. All right. Well, unless anybody has other questions, keep in mind if you have specific comments or thoughts about future topics, things you want to discuss, you're always welcome to jump in and we can talk about it, or you can let me know in advance and I can bring it into the discussion at a future time. So yeah, it's good seeing everybody. Thanks for joining me, and stay healthy, stay safe. Don't breathe too much dirty air. Now we can't close the windows because none of us has air conditioning, and we can't avoid the dirty air. But we'll do our best.
We're gonna be underground before we know it. I mean, I don't know how much further we can get away from each other.
Or flying to Mars.
Yeah.
Individual rovers to go to Mars.
Yeah, befriend Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He'll get you up there.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Stay healthy. Stay sane.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.